Today we are going to be exploring the concepts of perfectionism and how it is different from excellence, and this will basically be an invitation for you to ditch perfectionism and to embrace your uniqueness, be more gentle with yourself. So today, I want you to examine your life, see where you have held yourself back based on your need to control or where you're letting perfectionism hinder your progress. And I'm going to give you a couple of tools and some things to think about next. So then these will help you to build your awareness so that you can identify the difference between the need to control a situation and your commitment to excellence. So the first thing to do is to avoid self-sabotage. So this is kind of like what I was saying before. I was too committed to being perfect that I was actually sabotaging myself, sabotaging my progress. But it's also about being hard on yourself or negative self-talk, which prevents you from creating the life of your dreams. That's what negative self-talk is, when you imprint your mind with thoughts that don't serve you. So I have had tons of thoughts along the way. Who's going to listen to me if I look like this? Who's going to care what I have to say? Why would anyone care what I have to say? What if what I say doesn't come out exactly right, or if someone misinterprets it, or if I say something offensive without meaning to, or without knowing better? All of these things have come across my mind and have plagued me and made me put certain things on hold. And they have prevented me from taking action in my business for months at a time. And then, because I knew I wanted to start doing live videos, I knew that it would be helpful for the people in this community. I knew that it would be helpful for my business and for myself. And I knew that I had a lot that I wanted to share, but I didn't have the courage to do it. And I had this anxiety that it wouldn't be perfect. So finally, I just put the thought out there. I thought if I just put it out there and see if there's even any interest, at least I'll know. So I asked you all, in July, I think was the first live video. I asked if anyone would be interested in me going live weekly, and you all were so encouraging and enthusiastic, and it gave me a lot of confidence and courage to start doing this on a weekly basis. I miss a couple weeks here and there for going out of town and stuff like that, but generally just every single week I've been coming live, and if you've been with me that whole time, then you've probably seen a progression of confidence from the early presentations where I was a little bit more timid or maybe less confident in myself. I used to use PowerPoints because it helped me feel better to not be on camera, but obviously I don't care about that now. But I really do wish that I had started a long time ago, but I let my negative self-talk get in the way, and I don't want you all to let your negative self-talk get in the way, because ultimately you guys don't care what I look like, and I have kindness and I have wisdom and I have all these ideas to share, and I'm so glad that I started doing this, because it has helped me grow, and I think it has helped some of you all as well. I don't know, you can tell me if I'm wrong. Sometimes I don't say things exactly right. Sometimes I say things incorrectly. I'm sure I've said things that are not politically correct and sometimes maybe insensitive. I don't get things exactly right. Sometimes I say the wrong word when I mean something else, but none of that matters, because the point is that I've been able to do a completed project. When we expect ourselves to be perfect, we create a resistance. And instead of looking for what could go wrong, look for what could go right. Look for the things to appreciate. And be compassionate with yourself, because when you look at what you don't like about yourself, turn those things around and turn it around into something that you do like about yourself. Like, I don't like the way my voice sounds, but I'm so happy I can express myself verbally. And I recently saw this image I'm going to put up for you. So it says, here's a tip I picked up from a friend that's helped me a lot. Replace self-deprecating jokes with ironically self-aggrandizing jokes. Like every time I trip and fall, instead of saying, I'm just a disaster human, say, I am the epitome of grace and beauty. Or like when I draw a picture I'm not 100% happy with, instead of saying, my art is trash, say something like, I think it's time we replace the Mona Lisa. When you do that, you get to make the joke, but you're also getting to practice building yourself up, And eventually it becomes a reflex, and you get so used to it that you can say nice stuff about yourself even when you aren't joking. So that really spoke to me, because I think that's one of the hardest things to transition into saying nice things about ourselves, is it feels immodest. It's so much easier to make fun of ourselves in a negative way, but if you can turn it into a joke, but it's a positive joke, I think that's a good way to try to shift it, because no one is immune to negative self-talk. Everyone has something that they don't like about themselves, whether it's your personality or your looks or whatever it is. But this keeps us from moving forward when we're saying these negative things. This keeps us from whatever your unique dream is. It keeps you from that when you are speaking badly about yourself. So become aware of when you are being hard on yourself and stop yourself. So be mindful about these thoughts as they cross your brain, or even if you're saying them out loud. Be mindful of that, and then stop yourself and reflect, make note of that. Be aware of that thought or those words. And the more you become aware of it, the more often you will be able to recognize it when it happens, so that you can reverse that behavior. Because when you start living life in your authentic skin, you can manifest and you can create the life you want. You can start to have that little bit of control that we have over, and that little bit of power. Which leads us to number 2, which is owning your power. So this is about that control issue of when you try to control situations and people, you don't leave any room for you and your own power. So it's important to figure out what your trigger is and what leads you down that path to wanting to control things. So for me, it's often when I feel pressure or when I feel stress that comes on with that pressure to finish something by a deadline. This puts stress on my body, and it makes me want to take back any control that I think I have. So I'll start to micromanage, because I want to make sure that when the deadline arrives, there is a perfect product. But again, there's no such thing as a perfect product. So micromanaging doesn't help anything. It just adds to the stress. And it also spreads into my personal life, where I want to micromanage the cats and Dana, my fiance. But when you try to take this control, you are actually creating a gap between yourself and the divine, whatever your source of energy is, whether that's God or the universe or spirit or some other divine energy. And you keep trying to fill that gap with more control. But as you fill the gap, it's like a wedge, making the gap bigger, and it widens that gap between yourself and the divine until you don't have that connection at all. So perfectionism gives us this false perception that we have any control, but we actually don't have any control. So in some ways we have control. That's what, I talk about taking back control over your life and things like that. So there are things that we have control over. We can control our own actions, and we can control our own selves. We can guide our emotions. We can guide our energy. We can control how we respond to things. We can control how we choose to perceive our reality. We have control over those things, but so much of our experience is actually determined by the timing of the universe. When you live under the assumption that you have any control, that you can control anything more than you're actually capable of, you're actually blocking any control that you do have. So wanting to control a situation comes from a place of feeling powerless, but control is actually the opposite of power. And when you feel yourself beginning to micromanage or to feel like you need to control everything and everyone around you, guide your emotions and your actions, because those are things that you do have control over. Guide them to a place of non-controlling, of non-manipulating. To do this, you would take a step back, meditate, journal, let go, release, surrender to the process. And this is when you would take the time to reconnect and commune with the universe or the divine or your witchcraft practice, wherever your source energy comes from. Connect yourself, you, the microcosm, back to the macrocosm of the universe. And let loose the need to control. Ultimately, this will help you to gain the power to determine what your reality is. So the third thing is about resistance. What you resist is actually what persists. So the more you are irritated with the things that you don't like in your life, the longer they will actually remain as part of your reality. And this is harmful to your future because your current reality is built from your thoughts and actions and words of your past. And right now, you are building your future with your present thoughts, words, and actions. So refocus your attention onto what you want to see in the future, or you will continue to see the reality you don't want. You'll continue to see the things that you are focusing on, and if those are things you don't like, then that's what you're going to continue to see. In our brains, there's something called the reticular activating system, or RAS, which is a bundle of nerves at our brainstem, and it filters out the unnecessary information so that all of the important stuff can get through, so that you can pay attention to what matters. This is the reason that when you learn a new word, you see it everywhere. Or if you start wanting something, like maybe you want a car, a particular model of car, you'll start seeing it everywhere. It's why you can tune out the noises of a crowd, but immediately you can snap to attention when you hear your own name or when you see a face you recognize. The more you activate something, the more you see it. And you can make a choice about how the RAS functions in your life. When you complain, you find more to complain about, and you will continue to see things to complain about. Or you can choose to let those things fall into the background, so that you can focus on what is beautiful. So there's this Japanese art called kintsugi, which teaches us that a broken object is something that you should display, not something you should hide or throw away, but you should be proud of. It's the art of repairing broken ceramics as a way to give it a new lease on life, and that pottery can be used again, but it's also even more beautiful and in some cases even more valuable because it has these scars which make it unique. So look at your scars, look at all of the wounds that you carry and things that you've picked up throughout your life, and instead of complaining about how you got them or all of the trauma you've been through, celebrate them, because these are the things that make you unique. Release those emotions that are attached to the events or the trauma of your past, and celebrate the fact that you're here now and you are unique because of those experiences. And the fourth thing is to embrace who you are with self-compassion. So we've talked a little bit throughout this session about self-compassion, and really it is the carrying theme of this perfectionism, because perfectionism, I think, stems from a place of not accepting yourself. So self-compassion is how you begin to embrace your own self and your own sense of self. Embrace who you are, where you are right now. Embrace your perceived faults with what you already love about yourself. Embrace and love who you are at this point in time. When you cultivate self-compassion and love, you take care of yourself. When you nurture who you are and what you need, you see what you are looking for. So you are here in this group because you want to create change and you want a sense of community. And for both purposes, you have to embrace who you are and show up as who you are, knowing that you are perfect just as you are, where you are in this moment. Stop getting caught up in getting to that destination, whatever you're reaching for, whatever you're moving towards. It's the time to stop getting caught up in that goal where you want to be and embrace the journey of where you are right now. Remove those destructive patterns by being more compassionate with yourself. Take a moment to examine what you perceive as a flaw. Then try them on from a different perspective. Look at them from your best friend's point of view. How would your best friend describe what you consider a flaw to you? How would your mom or your dad or your grandparents or your siblings see it? Look at what you think of as a flaw from the perspective of someone who loves you unconditionally, and embrace them. Look at your flaws as part of your power. And when you release your perception of flaws, you release that resistance. When you release the perfectionism, you're going with the flow. You're able to go with the flow, and that is your path to freedom. Thank you so much. Thank you for watching. Love you guys. Bye.